This video is going to be a breakdown of what you just saw. To render the final result, I used a free rendering farm service called Sheepit. You've probably heard of it. If you want, I can make a video explaining how to set it up. Just make sure to leave a comment below. The rest of the footage is going to be sped up to save your time. And I will be making commentary whenever necessary. So for simple landscapes like these, you can either go the sculpting route, or you can just add a plane, subdivide it multiple times, and then you can use proportional editing with O, where you can just lift some faces and leave others, so you can deform it. It's fairly easy. Now I'm just adjusting the composition. I duplicated the first plane to make the second part of the ground that's shown in the image. I will be using a Nishida sky texture, but also the Botanic add-on to add a tree. Yeah, now I will populate the floors with some grass. You can adjust the scale as well as the number of the particles. You can also adjust the scale by each part of the particle system, so specific flower if you want. Yeah, here I will be painting on the ground, so I try to paint only what's visible in the camera. You can even paint directly, as you just saw there. You can paint directly on the render viewport, so there is no need to populate regions that are not visible in the camera. We'll do the same for the second ground. I added particle system, but I noticed that it had the default parameters, so instead I deleted it and then duplicated the existing one, so I don't have to do the same job twice. For nature photography, you usually have a low focal length. Just trying to find a nice mood with by tweaking the sun intensity as well as the elevation and rotation of the sun. I'm trying to emulate sunrise, probably the orangey feel of a sunrise. So I added another tree to put in the second ground, and I will populate it shortly by duplicating the same tree and then rotating it to add some variation, as well as changing the scale. You can also add other types of trees. Yeah, painting directly on the render viewport is way more efficient than doing it in the normal viewport. I do the same for the second plane. This is where I add wooden poles. It's very simple geometry. You don't need a lot of detail because we know it's going to be a little far from the camera. I added a simple fake wood material the brown color, which looks more than enough. I think I also added a noise texture to make it a little bit more interesting, but it's really not gonna matter. Barely visible. Yes, this is the material of the water. As you can see, it's really simple. There's 101 ways to make water. It's just you just bump up the transmission to 1 and then you add a volume absorption. Now this is where I try to make the background. It's just an image. You just add an image as a plane. I tried multiple variations. I think I tried like 5 or 6 photos before I settled for one. Yeah, if it feels like your photo is washed up, you can connect it to an emission node or directly to the material output. I talked about this in one of my videos. Yeah, this is where I hook up the photo to a color ramp to try and simulate light coming out of so where there is clouds, there's going to be less light than the parts where there are no clouds. That's just what I'm trying to do here. But I think I end up not going with this idea. I'm just using a simple plane. Yeah, this is the one I ended up using. You can plug the color directly into the emission if you want to control the emission as well. There's always multiple ways to do the same thing. I like this because it has an orangey color, so it's closer to what we want to achieve, which is sunrise. Yeah, sunrise. I think there is at some point of the day where you can tell the difference between a sunrise and a sunset. Whenever you have a material or a particle system and there is a number close to it, it shows the number of users for that material or texture. And when you click on that number, it will duplicate it, which will unlink it from the rest. So it will be some sort of what we call full copy. So you can tweak it without impacting the other copies. I just play with the density of the grass. Tweaking is the name of the game. I add more trees on the first plane with different variations. Yeah, with Botanic you can also add animation to the trees if you want. This is where I add volumetrics to the scene. So by adding a cube, in the viewport display you can display it as bounce so it doesn't obstruct your vision in the viewport. But I wanted to make it a little bit interesting, so I'll add a gradient so that the fog is thicker when you go down and then it gets lighter as you go up. That's what I'm trying to simulate. I'm using a gradient texture, obviously, tweaking the mapping so I get the result I want, which is white. Yeah, black at the bottom, and then it gets whiter as you go up. Again, this is part of my latest. I think the video before the latest one, I talked about the basics of masking. This is exactly what I'm doing. This is basic masking. Yeah, this is the node setup if you want to pause. Yeah, this is where I keyframe the movement of the animation of the camera. Just move it back. Oh, I'm playing again with the rotation of the sun. Yeah, I move back, I insert a keyframe and then move it forward a little bit and then tilt it up. Then add another keyframe. Very simple animation. To make the water move, you have to play with the W parameter. That's why we choose a 4D noise texture, so you can play with the W. Don't move it a lot because otherwise the water it's going to look it's going to look unrealistic if you move it by a high margin. I think I moved it from 0 to 0.2 at the end. And to add the crows or birds, I used an add-on called Spiderfy. Cool name, by the way. I've never used this add-on before, but I mean it was fairly intuitive. So you just add a bug system with a goal, and then your bug system will start flying towards the goal simply. Yeah, at first I added it without a goal. You have to check the add goal check mark, and then once you do that, you move your goal. Yeah, this is your goal. It's going to be an empty. You move it to where you want your birds to fly, and then you can adjust different parameters like max airspeed, number of birds, whatever you like. It's a very interesting add-on mix. It gets the job done. I noticed that my birds look a little off. Look, it's because they're deformed. I made a mistake when once I added the bird, I wanted them to be smaller, but instead of adjusting the particle system, I changed the size of the birds. So now I bring them back to the normal size. Because if I think there is an armature link to it, so when you change the size, it deforms. I'm not sure. I don't do rigging, but yeah, instead you need to change the scale in your particle system, which turned out to be a better solution. The burbs don't get deformed that way. Yeah, I obviously added some depth of field. Yeah, don't make it too blurry because it wouldn't make sense for a low focal length. This is why I try to make the fog a little more interesting by mixing it with a noise texture, mixing the gradient with the noise, but it's just going the extra mile. I don't have to do this. Playing with the location of the wooden poles a bit, but yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.